All of you will remember that back in 2006, on the eve of the International AIDS Conference in Toronto, we had that magnificent grandmother's gathering. Several months earlier, Ilana had come to me and said, "Dad, all these grandmothers are emerging in Africa. We're doing nothing for them. They're looking after hordes of orphan grandchildren. They desperately need help. What should we do?" So we brought a couple of grandmothers from Africa, from South Africa, and we had Adrienne Clarkson and Shirley Douglas,
yeah.
Two resonant Canadian grandmothers. We had a press conference. It got some publicity. It wasn't bad. It wasn't overwhelming. Ilana comes to me and says, "Dad, let's do more than that. Let's have a larger number of grandmothers come to Canada." And I said, "How many?" She said, "What about a dozen?" I said, "How about 100?"
Well, since then, we have had the Swaziland Grandmothers Gathering with 500 grandmothers from 42 projects supported by the Grandmothers Campaign and Movement from 11 countries. And then recently in October, this last October in 2015 in Uganda, soon in South Africa. I think it's fair to say, after a decade, that the African grandmothers are mobilizing and moving. It took a decade for the African grandmothers to really get their families and their own feet back on the ground, to get the food and the schooling and the psychosocial counseling. But now after a decade, they're ready to move, and they're claiming pensions and health care rights for older women and older women living with HIV, and special programs for HIV positive grandchildren. And I think in the 10th anniversary of the Grandmothers Campaign in Canada, we have a lot to celebrate. The Canadian grandmothers, you have raised over $24 million that have gone, and
It's so typical of Ilana. She can't bring herself to say almost $25 million, which is
25.
a much more symmetrical figure. Continue, but be more lavish in your sentiments.
I'll be more lavish, which has gone directly to the organizations run by and for grandmothers in the 15 countries which we've been supporting since our inception.
The Canadian grandmothers have achieved memorable and remarkable gains. The African grandmothers are filled with solidarity and love for the sense of the benefits that have been brought to them, but the sense of how much we value their struggle for human rights. So this is just the beginning of the next 10 years. It's now a grandmother's movement. It will circulate around the world. It will transcend every other social movement, whether it's the 1% or Occupy or anything else. Grandmothers will be at the center of the world's stage.
So let's take a moment now. It's the 10th anniversary. It's 2016. Let's take a moment to pause and celebrate everything that you've achieved, everything we've achieved together, and then let's get back to work so that the African grandmothers can take it all the way. Thank you.